Hi there, welcome to this channel dedicated to the psychic surgeons of Sirius. I was initiated into this particular spiritual healing current by a remarkable man called Amun-Ra Antares, who was a master of Metzger, among many other healing modalities, and it was he who initiated a group of us in Ireland into this particular healing modality. And actually, I I begin this channel a bit self-consciously, I suppose, really. And if ever there was a case of healer, heal thyself, would be to get rid of this self-conscious, rather awkward feeling. I'm sort of sharing something which is incredibly personal to me, and yet came to me via another spiritual master, which is a strange sort of, I don't know, kind of a strange situation to be in, I suppose. But I'm not going to dwell too much on this, if at all. This is actually one of the psychic surgeons of Sirius in pictorial form. Somebody said they look like the magic mushroom men and or women, and they do look a bit like magic mushrooms. But I'm not quite sure that there's any connection between the psilocybin providing organic material and very spiritual psychic surgeons from Sirius, although perhaps there is a connection there somewhere. Perhaps there's a connection between everything ultimately, which there is, because all is one after all. Anyway, so that's the pictorial form of one of them, called Amada. And I suppose over the course of this channel, these videos, I'm going to go through each of the psychic surgeons and sort of ad lib it to just with regard to describing each of them and what they do, as far as I understand it. But the first question really that must be asked is, what is spiritual healing? And originally, I study the Holy Kabbalah, and I came up with 10 definitions of spiritual healing according to each of the Sephirot of the Kabbalah, which was quite an interesting exercise, but I've whittled it down to just 5 here. And I suppose one of the things, the most obvious definition is what I call, based on the interventionist model. This is basically when you call upon some divine or supernatural power to intervene in your life to increase your well-being, or even to create a miraculous cure to some chronic or acute illness. And a lot of people will say, well, this is really praying by any other name. And I suppose it is. The laying on of hands is a very ancient practice, especially in the Christian and Hebrew and Muslim traditions and sub-traditions. And it's very well known, obviously. But I mean, interventionist also in the sense that you don't have to believe in an intervening God or deity. You can, of course, talk about uh, redistributing vital energy around the body, and in particular removing energy blocks, so-called, from around the body, which will enable a balanced flow of energy to be initiated, which will have ramifications for one's well-being and increase well-being, vitality, and again, perhaps ameliorate symptoms and even remove the causes of chronic illness, which lie in energy blocks more than anything else. So there you're sort of intervening in the sense that you're redistributing energy on one hand, and perhaps removing energy blocks on the other. And no doubt it could be argued that this is a sort of manipulative intervention on the practitioner's part, or indeed on the person that's been given certain spiritual tools to enable them to do it for themselves. And a kind of a controversy rages between whether something is interventionist, whether we're manipulating energy as humans, or whether we're praying to some divine energy source to intervene without us directing any of it. And no doubt there's a spectrum of beliefs with regard to this, really. And I think a lot of splitting hairs takes place as regard what is interventionist by humans or by practitioners and what is interventionist by the divine. And perhaps there's a sort of grey area, really, that exists between them. So that's kind of the classic definition of spiritual healing, one which basically everybody is aware of, that goes to New Age festivals and goes to spiritual healers for that matter, or acupuncturists or homeopaths or even allopathic medicine can be described obviously as interventionist on the biochemical level. And talk about complementary medicine, which is supposed to be complementary to allopathic or orthodox medicine, and not a replacement of it, of course. And there's a lot of controversy about that as well. And so that's one thing. I mean, I talk about the alignment model. Obviously, spiritual healing can be described as the alignment of body, soul, and spirit complex to the universal spirit. And it could be that in some way, a lot of healing modalities involve alignment or realignment of the individual to spirit. But here I'm sort of thinking about an alignment to a great mystery, to a factor infinite and unknown. And this sort of opening oneself up to the mystery of certain things, and a narrative which is mysterious. And I suppose you can't get more mysterious than the psychic surgeons of Sirius, because psychic surgery is obviously very controversial and evokes a lot of mystery and curiosity on people, by people. And then from the planet Sirius, or the star system Sirius, or the star Sirius, I mean, obviously, do we mean the Sirius star literally, or figuratively, or metaphorically, or metaphysically in some way? But anyway, it's sort of a mysterious element to spiritual healing, which is rather interesting and rather evocative. And perhaps it makes one sort of think outside the box or outside one's own self. So by thinking of spiritual matters, we think outside of ourselves. We even take a holiday from ourselves as we consider something greater and bigger than ourselves, which can have a powerful effect on the body-mind complex. Or at least this is what is claimed anyway. And then, you go on to things again, a little bit more esoteric, a bit more metaphysical. The idea that you might think it's a bit odd to say that the spirit needs healing, hence spiritual healing, but it is believed that really there are levels of spirit and levels of psyche, which sort of go all the way up to the top as sort of like a triangle. And at the top, there is no duality, there is perfection. But up until that point, even at levels of spirituality, of spiritual and psychic manifestation, there is duality. So there is imbalance, there is impropriety, even there is disorder, let us say, and balance needs to be restored on the spiritual level before it can be restored on the emotional and physical level, as if the emotional, physical mental levels are a reflection of what's going on in the spiritual realm. So I had in mind here sort of a visualization of a sort of kind of like a cruciform figure with two sickle-shaped moons waxing and waning, and it, almost as if like this is a spiritual side of things, and this is the physical side of things, and they're kind of connected. And when they're either waxing or waning, or certainly in a dualistic state, one reflects the other, or the spirit, like the moon reflects the sun's light. And if there is some problem in the sun, then this will be reflected in the moon, as it were, figuratively speaking. So that's kind of an intriguing model to think about as far as spiritual healing is concerned. This kind of quite esoteric level of thinking about spiritual healing. You're not really concerned with intervening on the body or biochemical level. Your intervention, or one might say manipulation of energy even, is occurring on a spiritual level, and it sort of may percolate down through the levels eventually to the physical, resulting in some kind of biophysical change. Um, and then another sort of way of looking at spiritual healing is what I call the reconciliatory model. If you think of the natural state, which is oneness between spirit, between your individual soul and universal spirit, there exists a natural state of oneness. And then all sorts of stresses and strains occur on this level of consciousness, the physical level, the level of material. And these distortions and distractions and what have you are set to separate your spirit from the spirit, and create division where there should be unity. And so the idea of spiritual healing is to re-establish unity between your individual spirit and the universal spirit. And this can have far-reaching ramifications and implications for the well-being of your emotions and even your body. So again, talking about the miraculous occurring when reconciliation occurs between universal spirit and individual spirit. And on the same sort of level, one talks about the Gnostic model, or what I call here the hope-based model. The idea here is that soul is trapped in the physical envelope and in materiality and in the material universe. And we are full of sort of dismay over this on a very deep level. But by actually concentrating or focusing on aspects of spirituality, we can open our eyes to the possibility that there is more than just this material world, that there exists a spiritual dimension which is fully accessible, and in fact actually which we've never left. We just think we've left it, but we actually haven't left it. So re-establishment of spiritual awareness or God awareness could be what defines spiritual healing. And so therefore, again, many things can sort of perhaps occur as a result of achieving God realization and self-realization. Again, one's well-being could increase, one's vitality and things like that, and chronic diseases are ameliorated as a result of God awareness. So, but the physical is not that important in this model. What really counts is an emotional response to the fact that it's possible to escape permanently or temporarily from the stresses and strains of this world. That's why I sort of call it the Gnostic model of spiritual healing. Now, I realize, of course, that as you get to the center of these definitions, all five of these definitions break down, and that that we've sort of defined them, and there's rigid category difference between them apparently. But when you get to the centre, of course, all these definitions tend to break down, and we're left basically with the question mark: what is spiritual healing? Question mark, and it's both again possibly the definition of spiritual healing is very much dependent on the individual, and well, certainly on the tradition of spiritual healing that the spiritual healer finds himself or herself attached to or part of. But at any rate, I suppose that one that fascinates me the most is the reconciliation between spirit, between the individual spirit and the universal spirit, or the divine, and the divine in the world, which is our consciousness as it's presently constituted. And the idea of spiritual healing as being a reconciliation between God and man or woman is well, obviously that's a Christian way of looking at things, but it's also present in other religions as well. And that would be a very interesting and powerful definition of spiritual healing for me. And again, to refer back to the pictorial representation of the psychic surgeons of Sirius, presumably, the psychic surgeons of Sirius are instrumental in some way in bringing reconciliation about, perhaps, or bringing hope to the person, or actually intervening in some aspect of the person's life, or creating a kind of a mystery for the person, to enable them to look out from their narrow sort of confines of perception and increase their perception in some way, or even to produce some kind of spiritual healing on the spiritual level. And so, therefore, this, I hope, kind of sets the stage, as it were, for further discussion on the psychic surgeons of Sirius. But I mean, I do realise that one shouldn't be too analytical, and having presented an analytical video like this, it's really then up to me to present the various psychic surgeons of Sirius individually, by tuning into them primarily, of course, and also presenting to you a couple of modalities, ways in which the psychic surgeons of Sirius can enter your life or be part of your life, as it were, through radionics and other modalities. That's what I mean about that. So, welcome to this channel, and I hope you find it informative and inspiring. And I hope you take away the information and use it for your own personal spiritual healing, and for the healing of loved ones and family. Thank you very much for watching, and bye for now.